Your initial question is why the plot event you summarized is not the initial incident? That one I can settle really simply, and then I'll talk about the other bigger issue. Who's the antagonist in Auntie Misery's conflict? Death. Is death part of that incident with the kids stealing the pears? Then it can't be the initial incident, because the initial incident must be the first time that the protagonist and the antagonist come into conflict in some way. And since death is not present with the kids, what you actually have is you have two personal conflicts. One begins and ends, and then the next one begins and ends. So the story is divided into two, which can make it a little bit confusing because you want to deal with the story as a whole. So you look at the first incident of conflict, but you have initial incident of conflict A, but you're talking about conflict B. Does that make sense? Okay, so there's one issue. But let's talk about the bigger issue. I want you taking notes on this. Let's start a file. Let's call that file, this will be notes for you, analytical writing notes. Easy enough. Yeah, I'm not going to check your notes, but my recommendation is that you use some sort of method of organization such that you can keep different sorts of notes separate. So if you need to refer to your notes about writing, you can go to that file. And if you need to refer to your notes about character, you can go to that file. Tyler, if it's clear enough for you to have them all in one file, that's fine. I will not be checking it. So let's talk here about summary versus analysis. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go. All right, put your thumbs down. Hold on another second. Just need you on a blank file, and you can start by saying summary versus analysis, or typing summary versus analysis on there. You worked in summary in elementary school. What assignments were you given in elementary school that asked you to summarize stories or books? Okay, book reports. The classic elementary school assignment is a book report, which just asks you to read a book and sort of summarize it. And maybe you can summarize certain specific sections and answer questions, but it's basically summary. I'm asking you to deal now in analysis. This is a higher order of thinking. Let me explain the difference between the two. Summary Summary is recounting events and the story based on its structure. By structure, I mean the order of events. So if the first event in Auntie Misery is those kids stealing those pears, that's what I'm starting with in my summary. If the last event is misery and death, living forever, and everybody being sure that they can see misery and death, that's the last event in your summary. Summary is very simple. Tell me in your own words what happened. We're past it. We're way past it. Should be, at least. Focusing on a concept and discussing it only. Can somebody give me an example of a concept that I've asked you to focus on in one of these analytical writings? Silence descends. What concepts are you dealing with in literary analysis? Gabe. We haven't done it yet, but yes, irony is a concept, so I could discuss irony. Bridget, give me another one that I've asked you to focus on. A concept. Okay. Joey, do you know a literature concept that you've learned in this class? Guys, we've been talking about literature for 3 weeks now. Gabe's the only person that can list a single literature concept. Do you understand what the word... Tyler. Thank you. More, please. Jesse. Yes, but let's subdivide it. Plot's really big, right? So give me a specific concept within plot. Any one of them. Remember the stages of the plot? Remember one of those names? You can refer to your notes if you don't recall one. Give me a type. Give me more. Tyler? What were we dealing with on Friday? Give me one of the concepts from Friday. Well, that's the environmental conflict, person versus nature. That's true. Another one of the conflicts. Thank you, Alexis. What about the character concepts you're dealing with on Friday? Thank you. Flat character. These are examples. What we're doing through this unit is lengthening the list of concepts to understand in literature. So when I go over to Ethan and I say, hey, Ethan, I want you to talk about this reading, at a certain point, Ethan should look at me and say, talk about what in the reading? He should be asking me for a concept to focus on. And I could say, well, Ethan, why don't you talk about the protagonist and the character type of the protagonist? Now Ethan says, oh, okay. So I think the protagonist is dynamic, so I'm going to talk about the dynamic nature of the protagonist. Analytical writing focuses on the concept. Everybody look in your analytical writing. Click over to your analytical writing, please. Open that. Look at your first sentence of number 1. In Anti-Misery, Kofer develops between anti-misery and death. What is Tyler's concept? Matthew, what's Tyler's concept for focus? No, the anti-misery is the name, are the names of characters. What's his concept? Personal conflict. Thank you very much. In The Telltale Heart, Edgar Allan Poe creates an internal conflict between the narrator and the voices in his head. Jesse, what's the concept in that writing? What's her concept focus? Internal conflict. Very good. Internal conflict is her concept focus. Katie, what's her concept focus in number 2? Flat character. Bridget, what's Amanda's concept focus in her first writing? Which type? Nope. Nope. In The Telltale Heart, Edgar Allan Poe shows the reader internal conflict inside the narrator. What type of conflict? Right, person versus self, internal conflict. It's right there. Analytical writing always starts with the concept, and that concept dominates the entire writing. And when we talk about irony, if we're talking about irony, every sentence should deal with irony. If you want a well-integrated paragraph, every sentence should focus on this. We're really close to me explaining exactly to Tyler what's going on. So, Tyler, what was your concept? Personal conflict, right? Personal conflict and initial incident, those were the two concepts you had to deal with? Personal conflict and initial incident. If Tyler wants to talk about personal conflict, what must he tell me about? Okay. What are the two characters that we're talking about? What are their names then? Sorry? Do not use main character. Hate that term. Better. In terms of conflict, what do we call them? Thank you. I want to hear about protagonist, and I want to hear about an antagonist. When I talk about the protagonist and antagonist, what must I discuss in relation to them? Their motivations, their goals, their interests. What is the protagonist's goal? What is the antagonist's goal? In initial incident, what am I doing? If I want to show initial incident, what am I showing in my writing? Okay, once again. Not necessarily what triggers the motivations, because we could say the motivations have always... That's not initial incident quite yet. Alyssa, what's the definition of initial incident? Somebody help Alyssa. What's the definition of initial incident? And I think Alyssa right now is so concerned that she recounted word for word perfectly that she's going to look it up and try to find it. Can somebody just give me a very quick definition of... That's right, the plot event that starts the conflict. So if I'm dealing with personal conflict, I need this information. If I'm dealing with initial incident, I need a plot event. What I'm saying about yours, Tyler, is that this is sort of a map for what your writing should do. Certain parts are missing. I'm missing that. And this one was the incorrect initial incident. Yes? Right, so let's take a look at your writing. I'm just looking at this. I don't see any language in there, Tyler, that specifically says what anti-misery wants or what death wants. And sure, sometimes you may imply it, but I don't want implication in analytical writing. I want you to specifically say, anti-misery is afraid of death, so she wants to live forever. And that would be a very clear statement of her goal or her motivation. No, he can never visit her again is a fact about the story. It has nothing to do with her motivations. Let's take that sentence out. I say he can never visit her again. Did I say anything about what she wants in that sentence? I haven't said anything about what she wants. I just said something about a fact of the story. I want specific and clear language that talks about these concepts. If you say, I need to give the goal, then I want a sentence saying the protagonist wants this. The antagonist wants this. They can't both have it. Therefore, we have conflict. Okay, I'd love 5 more minutes with that discussion, but we don't have them. So sign out, close up, and put your Chromebooks back, please. We'll continue to talk about this because it's a vitally important concept in writing that I know some of you will struggle with.